So we're joined today by CJ Fiery Obasi, the director, producer, and founder of Nigerian-based Fiery Film, and of course Mandla Dube, director, producer, and founder of South Africa's Pambili Productions. It's an amazing to have you here with us. And on Zoom, we of course have Editi Effiong, if he's on, director, producer, and founder of Nigerian-based Anakle. So thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to kind of kick it off, to give an overview to people watching and people here with us, how would you describe the respective Nigerian and South African film industries up until this point?
Well, I can speak for South Africa, but
Yeah.
I think my colleague can go for Nigeria. But we've got the second, possibly oldest film industry in the world. But you wouldn't know that from, how the market is set up. I think during what's known as the Anglo-Boer War, cameras were used for the first time to capture war in South Africa. So we've had an industry somewhat, from back in the early 1900s. And it was obviously, I'm not going to go into the whole history of apartheid and all of that. Which is kind of common knowledge now, but it was very divided for a long time. And then, with now South Africa celebrating its 30th anniversary as a democracy, we see that our government has managed to be able to bring folks into participating in the economy and in the value chain of the film industry. So there's growth, directors, producers, we've got incentives that have supported us a great deal. And we see also support from international film studios coming into South Africa to come and do their films. So, and there's growth. The skill set is very big. And we've got directors, myself being one of them, who are working internationally based in South Africa. So there's growth.
Right, lovely.
Yeah.
The Nigerian film industry, everyone knows about Nollywood.
Of course.
Nollywood is, in terms of volume, is, I believe now the second largest in the world. So we do have Nollywood, but Nigeria is such a diverse country. We have a population of over 200 million people. So as diverse as the people, the art is diverse, the film is diverse, and so you have Nollywood and you have other kinds of cinema as well, starting to exist within the system and outside as well.
Definitely. And with the kind of developments that have happened over, let's say, the past 5 years or so, what have been some key milestones that each of your industries have reached and are kind of really setting the tone for what is to come?
I think for us, for a long time, because we've had a great commercials industry, if you want to call it that, where a lot of European producers come and film in South Africa because of its locations and the skill set. We have seen even our technicians being exported to go and work in the likes of in Europe, in Asia, and in Hollywood and so forth. So we are seeing a lot of professionals working globally outside of South Africa. But what's happened in the past 5 years and more maybe is that we've seen the streamer Netflix being very strong in South Africa and then on the continent and supporting, narratives and supporting filmmakers, to start constructing our own narrative. And what I said once when we were in some discussions with the Netflix executives, I said to them, what you've done is you've kind of revolutionized cinema and television. You brought the loud hailer into the rest of us, and in particular Africa. You're like, okay, you have a voice. Now go as loud as you can. And now we are, our voice is being heard. We no longer have to run to Hollywood. We are decolonizing the narrative, and we are constructing our own stories. And, thanks to these streamers, thanks to Showmax, and thanks to the IDC, thanks to the DTIC in South Africa. And yeah. And what I would love to see is for us, South Africa and Nigeria, to co-produce projects together for the market within the continent to export. That for me, I think would be, true revolution.
Oops.
Certainly. Are there any milestones for the Nigerian film industry that you've witnessed?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much potential. I mean, I think it's like the gift and the curse of the Nigerian film industry, because you see so much potential, and you also see a lot of advancement in there's improvement in the production values and the films being produced in Nigeria and all of that. But at the same time, you're like, oh, we're missing out on so much, and we still have a long way to go.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see where we'll be the next 5-10 years from now, just in terms of the kind of stories and the possibilities within these sort of collaborations within the continent.
But even talent, if we can be able to package our projects collectively, by having talent in front of the camera, talent, with Nigeria and South Africa, we can certainly do it. It's just the intention. We don't have to wait for anybody, because we are so used to waiting for somebody to come outside to come and say, you can do it.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that. We can just do it. Just like right now, we can come up with a project, pitch it, maybe Prudence will put it together to get funding for us, and we get it done. Like there's just no more time to sit around in coffee shops and just talk a lot of, maybe if we did that, we can just do it, just do it. That's what is there somebody else on Zoom?
Yes, Editi, yes. Are you able to hear us, Editi?
I believe it was. I'm still thinking about these things about black. Yeah. So, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Would you like to touch on, I don't know if you had the question in terms of the respective kind of milestones that have been experienced. What would you say for yourself they would be?
I think you've got two of the biggest films in the last couple of years that right there with you.
Yeah.
CJ did an amazing thing at Sundance with the Robbie Awards on. And that's like, I'm not sure one line of my congratulations. I sent I did a big congratulations to you, because I always say that with the success of the Black Book, it needed to be followed up by another big African title, and what you did, I would feel was so amazing, and so congratulations, man.
Thank you. Which one?
So happy to be here with you.
Thank you very much.
I think that having shown that, I'm really happy with that streamers, especially Netflix, have helped, democratize our audience, expand the African voice globally. When my film came out, The Black Kid came out, it got to number one. I was number one for a couple of weeks in South Korea. It was crazy. It felt like no African film could do that, but now we're seeing African films do that over and over. So the exciting thing there is that it has shown what we always say. African stories are global. We can tell global stories from Africa. So ultimately, we cannot wait for a streamer, only when a streamer signs up on a deal that we can make film. Thankfully, us Nigerians, we at least in our industry, we don't have a big enough structure to wait for green lights to rely on stuff. So the thing is, are we brave enough to stop, like when, let's say, having tea in coffee shops and actually go take the big swings, which is what we did, with half film. We didn't wait for a green light. We went ahead and made the film. And then the one said, oh, that's really cool. So we may not be able to wait for those commissions to happen. We may have to get those things by ourselves, which is what we've always done. Thank you.
Definitely. And I think that's such a key point. I mean, Mandla, you touched on it, and obviously Editi with Netflix and the presence of streamers and their ability. I mean, we saw it most notably during the pandemic as well, when people were touching into content that was necessarily outside of their comfort zone that they were used to. And how would you say that the presence of streamers and that broad reach on such an international scope has had on the actual content that's being crafted out of Nigeria and South Africa in terms of the themes that are being explored?
Yeah, we shot the film before Heart of the Hunter, Silverton Siege during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm here with one of the other members of Pambili Media, Sydney Messina, who was our production supervisor. And, we said to ourselves, we're going to make this film. Okay, so there were these pods that were created to be able to film during that period, which is what we did. And I think we've seen, I want to thank the whole pandemic. It was going to happen, so it was going to happen anyway, but we have to thank it because it has also put in a certain layer of urgency in as far as us is concerned for seeing ourselves relevant we didn't, again, not waiting. People could just take a phone or a video camera and story. I saw people making films in one location because they couldn't go outside, and the stories made sense. They edited them. I spent months with my son in lockdown, and we came up with something like 3-4 scripts, and one of them is the ones that we are now have made a graphic novel, Yasuke, that we're going to make into a feature film, live action. So yeah, so when you're locked up, you have your back, against the wall, you become very creative. Of course. Thank you very much for COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I haven't made a film for a streamer yet, but I mean, I do have the sensibility of a Nigerian, which is, to just go and do something. I mean, you don't have a choice.
Of course.
We don't have a national fund. We don't have any sort of development fund within the country. So if you want to make films, you have to find a way to make it. I think even for me, it's a little bit more complicated because I don't necessarily work within the mainstream system, and so that is even a little bit more challenging for me because I mean I'm sort of somewhere in the middle where I make films that I think are commercially viable, but that are not necessarily seen as commercially viable within the Nigerian system. But I also think that they should be commercially viable in the Nigerian system. But the market has to grow to the point where it becomes commercially viable. But it's like, okay, do I wait for that to happen? Or do I make what I believe to be the kind of art or the kind of work that I want to see in the world? So it's a little bit of this and that, but ultimately it's just about getting the work done.
Definitely.
And yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless, really.
Absolutely. I'm going to.
You're going to excuse me?
Of course.
God bless you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. I've got another panel or something. But yeah, thank you.
I had the pleasure of interviewing for Gangs of Lagos with Jade Obaseru and kind of seeing the fanfare that came about with the release of that. Not just in London with the Nigerian communities that are over there, but also from people that don't necessarily tap into that. So you definitely start to see how it is being received from audiences that might have necessarily tapped into it. Going forward then, is there a consciousness to continue telling stories that are specific to Nigerian culture as opposed to kind of, catering to the Western world and kind of more Western narratives so that is amplified to the greatest extent as possible?
The Nigerian culture is a lot of things.
Yeah.
So like, there's no one thing that, we're a country of 500 ethnic groups.
Of course.
And then, we have the largest diaspora population in the world. And so if you take that into consideration, you realize that, the Nigerian story is so diverse. There's no one way to tell that. There are so many ways to explore genre. I happen to think that, for example, I made a film, Muddy Water, and it is a Nigerian story. Well, guess what? It's also a Senegalese story. It's also an Ivorian story. It's also a Brazilian story. It's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I'm currently working on the film, but I'm not even shooting in Nigeria. but it's a Nigerian story.
Definitely.
And so there are all kinds of ways to tell these kinds of stories, because I feel like cinema, the great thing about cinema is that cinema has the ability to speak all kinds of languages in this visual way. And as long as you as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, you tap into that, you can reach as many people as possible. I don't look at filmmaking as, I'm a Nigerian filmmaker, which I am, of course, but I don't look at it like, I'm a Nigerian filmmaker, so I make films for Nigerians.
Yes.
And I don't think any serious filmmaker looks at themselves that way. I don't think a Japanese director looks as themselves as a guy who makes films for Japanese people.
Certainly.
You know what I mean? So like it's just a different way of looking at cinema, and cinema being what it is, which is the ability to tell visual stories that connect with people in a very real and human and universal way.
Of course. And Editi, for yourself?
I think that it's a very simple answer. African stories are global stories. There is absolutely no need to have a special categorization for African stories. Everyone in the world feels emotions. And films, stories are meant to provoke, meant to illuminate. And so if we all feel sadness, happiness, joy, as the case may be, and stories and make us feel those things, then they are just stories. We are African, so it just means our perspectives are colored by where we come from. It means we can tell the story of where we come from. Better does not mean that they are just for African audiences. African stories are global stories. And I believe that the population that ultimately we have in the future is finding the quality of output, which is better. If the output, because people in the world is used to a certain kind of quality of films, it means that if our output is not good, it's not similar, people would always gravitate to what they used to, and so we have to have output in the same.
You want to get this one?
And then as we walk Hollywood as we divide it. And which is what I've said. I think, again, you go back to what CJ did with Mandla was, it was very beautiful vision. It was a world-class vision story. And CJ, I found you a bit of this and like the award. Yeah. Anyway. So and so you might speak on my how do I consume content at this moment? Humans. I see the question in the files, and I scroll through, and I want to pick a film. I don't think anyone out there in the world wants to say, let me help these Africans by watching this their country film, especially a film that doesn't look good. No one does. And so it's important that we raise the right amount of money to ensure that we are shooting, price to ensure that when people are making those choices, the consumers are making those choices with the access to the market that we have. They do not have to downgrade. We make film that are put at a level where people don't have to make a biased choice. Then I believe that the entire world's market will be open at once. Again, not everyone can do this, but if we have the privilege, we have this privilege of doing it. I think we pay a responsibility to our team to tell stories that people don't have to compromise on. Stories have to be world class. The artist has to be world class.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really grateful to Kagisho for doing this for us. Thank you.
Definitely. And such amazing points from both of you. So going forward then, to ensure that this is continued, what are the kind of steps being made to support the next generation of filmmakers who might not necessarily, probably in the future are thinking of getting to the streamers and getting that exposure, but might just simply be using their phones to bring those stories to life on screen? What is there being done either from a governmental point of view or from your respective companies to kind of uplift the next generation of filmmakers?
Well, on my end, the government to just take that out.
Yeah.
But from my end, I'm part of a collective called the Surreal 16 Collective, and we started the film festival in 3 years ago. And this film festival is specifically designed and set up to find young filmmakers who are creating genre art house specific kinds of cinema outside of the mainstream. And it's actually getting bigger and bigger every year. I mean, we have our 4th edition this year in Lagos in December. And every single year we find, there's a discovery. We find, some young guy in Enugu is making crazy short films that you would never think,
Incredible.
from Nigeria. Another guy from Kogi State is making something crazy. Just last year, we curated a selection of these shorts at the Winterthur Film Festival,
amazing.
which is one of the top short film festivals in the world. And we are partnering with a festival in Brazil, the Mostra Cinemas AfroCannes Festival, partnering with Locarno this year as well. And so we are trying to find people like us, because when I was coming up as a filmmaker, that was the biggest struggle. No, I couldn't find people like me. Luckily, I was lucky to find filmmakers like Abba Makama, Michael Mono, and a few others, but it was really difficult for the longest time, and it felt very lonely and cold. And so I don't want to, if I can help it, I don't want other people to feel that way. And so that's the reason for the festival. And I think what that does is that it inspires people to see other paths and other possibilities. And it also allows them to present their work on global spaces such as Cannes, Locarno, Sundance, all of these things. When they see other people doing that and they see that there's another way, they are inspired. And also, like, just from a business perspective, people are looking for talent. People are looking for, fresh voices who are creating cinema and reinventing cinema. And you're not going to find that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, or if you keep working with the same people over and over again.
It's true.
And so I think for the entire ecosystem across the board, this is the way to go. This is the way to go, to find young people who come into the industry with a fresh perspective, just with a fresh way of looking at storytelling. And I think that's how we keep this whole thing going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Editi?
Okay, so I don't think I have the experience to comment on making films with phones.
Yeah.
I should about that. But I would say though that what I hope to do with my company is to build a global studio that tells stories from the African perspective. That is what I know how to do. That's what I am doing. We currently raising $2 million, and what we want to do is not just to make films that get excited with African voice on a global stage, but commission projects, greenlight projects by young filmmakers. We bought one IP from young Nigerian writers. One of the shows we are calling Dealmaker with animations. This guy walked into the office and he says, I want to sell this thing for what is. We wanted to make this film for about $70,000. And I looked at what was promising the market, literally not like, if you don't realize how big this could be. And he paid him $10,000 for a love line. And I think that, and we're now moving into a studio system. It's now one of the biggest things we have created. And I think that is a powerful way to empower this guy, to which empower him, because he's going to head down, create bigger things based on that inspiration. Someone told him, what you're doing is so amazing. It's big. And so the last two things he's brought to me, I now someone figure out, I'm like, okay, this is what we're talking about. And I feel like my strength I consider to be my thing that I will retire on try to make. I worked with two young writers. And this was 2018 that when we started writing that script, and we focused in 2021, and they were on the salary through that period. I think that in this industry, we the most potent way in growing talent is hiring. paying writers, buying IP, hiring people into projects, because it's through that exposure to better way of dealing with the culture that people gain more experience and broaden their perspective of the world. Um, I think of this because I grew up in a town, right? I grew up in a village in Nigeria when I was much younger. And but my dad had a library. My dad taught English in secondary school and had a house full of books. And I would read all these books and come out and we talk with my siblings about New York and London and Paris that you in New York about. But the books were so enlightening. So when we see New York and film, having read about stuff, we could identify things. And I think that that exposure, to the world, to the works that people create, is very important for people coming behind us, and we have to be very conscious, about creating and empowering the creative process.
Amazing. And that kind of segues very easily into the next question in terms of having, like you said, just through the books, but now talking larger on the film industry scale, having the presence of international collaboration. Obviously, when Mandla was here, we were talking about how he wants to see more collaboration between South Africa and Nigeria, and bringing that to fruition, and just with amongst the continent, and bringing the industries together. But going outside the continent to other film industries, whether in the States or Europe or Asia, how important is it to have that international collaboration, that international input and insight into building up the local industry and hopefully bringing pieces that?
I think it's super important. I think it's it's not one or the other.
Yes,
it's both. You have to have both. We have to have collaborations within the continent, and then we should have collaborations outside of the continent. It's all part of different ways of telling stories and different ways of figuring out how to understand each other
definitely
more, and to be part of the global game of filmmaking. I think for me, it's even more critical at this particular moment in time where we have all these questions about cinema versus content, and what is relevant as kind of stories that are relevant, whether politically or socially. There are all these kinds of questions about cinema, and I think if we really want to play the game, like the game of cinema, we have to get into the game, and the way to get into the game is to play with all the parties involved. Be it the United States, be it the UK, Europe, whatever. Me specifically, my current project that I'm, currently working on it's a Brazilian, it's with Brazil, it's with the United States, it's with the UK, it's with Senegal, it's it's like all over the place. And so, but there's also a reason behind having a more intentional kind of storytelling that not only touches on these sorts of collaborations, but has a storytelling that touches on different cultures as well.
Absolutely.
Because the thing is, cinema, again, I keep talking about cinema, but that's because, when you say cinema, people have this idea of, this very high, lofty arts thing. But, I look at it as something that is malleable and it's accessible to everyone. Definitely. Right? And so the idea of cinema for me is just this very powerful tool that, I can tell a story that is very specific to Nigeria. But guess what? I can tell it from a Senegalese point of view. I can tell it from a Brazilian point of view. I can tell it from a New Orleans point of view.
Absolutely.
So those are the kind of things that interest me specifically as a filmmaker. And I think if we can have works like that, not necessarily in terms of, finding different countries, but works that have a cross-cultural implication. I think those are the ways that we can politically, socially insert ourselves in the game of filmmaking. And I think there's a game, the entire Cannes Film Festival is a game.
Absolutely.
So every single film market, or the commercial space, theatrical distribution, all of these things are games. And until Africa as a continent and filmmakers from the continent start to recognize that it's a game, we will still be relegated to the background or as a niche, or as, just, people that need a favor or whatever. But, we have to get into the game and play it the way everyone else is playing it.
Definitely. Absolutely. Editi, I'll pass the question on to you.
Okay. One of the things I think is very important to recognize is that film is an expensive medium. Film is very expensive to make. And so we always will have to come back to the economics of making a film. And cinema as a medium, especially say in Nigeria and also Sudan, it's difficult to make an investment at the scale that is required because we have 65 cinema states in Nigeria in total. And across West Africa we had less than 2,000 cinemas. I mean, you're talking about so West Central Africa all the way down to East Africa. And if I look at that, it now becomes very difficult for me to make an investment case using African cinema as a primary acquisition route. And it really talk about making films for a global audience and making films that compete on an equal footing with, global films, with South Korea, with Bollywood, and with Hollywood. Because let's make no mistake, it's fun competition. They're not going to win for us. They're not going to make money for us. We have to compete at the same stages, same quality. Now, if we have to then make an investment here for films that we make to compete, then we have to find fundraising opportunities or outside of cinema. We say in Nigeria, Ghana, West Africa. And so we have to do that. We have to do all the planning that we are doing with this in mind. And a few of us, and very few of us, included us in the studio systems in America, having great conversations, looking to commission stuff to make, with those global dollars. It's nice. But ultimately, it needs to, like 2 or 3 filmmakers being successful and being in those rooms is not enough. Which is why I think that as African creators, we also have to pay serious attention to the big business side of things. When we make money, we have to look at the investment money. We have to use those funds as in drive and performing investments, into being able to win money out of stuff. Because again, no one is going to commission an African film when they're not used to seeing an African film on the big screen. No one is going to. In the studio has a mandate. The studio has a mandate, and right now in Hollywood, for example, the biggest mandates are to do remakes, to establish IP. And established IP is almost not going to ever improve the actual films. And so you're not coming anything like that on stuff. No one is going to do it. And so as people who now have the privilege of even those films, quarterly court to use that power to raise the right amount of money to be able to green light stuff. Thank you, man.
Brilliant. And as we come to a close, just with that in mind, just kind of looking to the future, I always like to kind of end in a very, what is to come. Yes, definitely. But what are some either projects, trends in the creative field, or just general elements of the industry that are exciting you and have you really looking forward to what's to come from the Nigerian film industry? It doesn't even have to be anything of your own. It could be.
There are quite a few exciting things that are happening. We have some new conversations that are coming up, with adaptations of Nigerian literature.
Oh, amazing.
That will be made for the studio system, like properly released within the Hollywood and the world global studio system. Those specifically as well as collaboration, international collaboration between the UK and Nigeria, or the United States and Nigeria, and China and Nigeria, things like of this sort. So there are quite a number of things like that going on right now. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see the shape of the industry in the next 5-10 years, and the kind of work that will come out as well. Because for me, it's like, it's not just about making the work, but it's about what it does to have those kinds of work out in the market, and the perceptions that it changes. Editi was talking about, like, a lot of the issues we have is because people think African films are not viable.
Yeah.
And so the only way to change that is to show them that it is viable. It's not about whining about we need a hand, like a handout or whatever. No, we know that we are viable. We know our stories are awesome. We know that we have kick-ass talent. We know all these things, but now we have to show it.
And put it out.
And yeah, I mean, it will be exciting to see how the tables turn in the next 5-10 years.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Editi, for you.
I like you asking these tough questions. I just woke up this.
I'm so sorry.
I've made time hoping like this case is like good enough, because I don't know. But to your question, I think that I'm not a big follower of brains. I've always been a big believer in commissioning on doing those things, taking the swings when you have a strong market. and this is driven first by personal conviction and also by seeing what is happening in our industry. Long before people were making, none of us started making digital films. And this is all that I came into. And then moved on from there to make like love stories and things like that, and like love stories. It became a trend. But it now felt that the comedy started making sense, eventually. And so everyone drifted to making comedy. At the point, if you didn't have a comedy script, nobody wanted to talk to you. But CJ sitting there as a rebel who decided to make what he wanted to make. I am sitting here, the only reason I'm talking to you because I decided to make what I wanted to make.
Absolutely.
And it is the conviction that drives me. I will only ever commission and do the story that I am convicted to do. I'm also grateful that we have a great team. Shout out to Jill, Bradley, and CAA, who are like, who basically give you the muscle to be able to tell you stories that you want to tell. Everyone will get in line. When I tell the story, I have a responsibility to tell it well. And the one will get in line. And the beauty, hopefully, of being able to do this, whether or not a studio commissioned by Star, is that I'm going to do the things that I believe in. If we only ever follow the trends, where then is the beauty of the world? Where then is the encouragement of the world? But, we have to do what we have to do because we believe in them, not because this is what is fashionable or collectively what you at this moment. And the world will not always agree to them. The world will always wait for it. So I don't think that it benefits us, the Africans, to do only work that is currently being commissioned by Hollywood figures. They have to give us about those. Very, very different. Africans, we have different stories to tell. And so if we wait because it's not a trend called making a certain kind of film in Hollywood, we can only make those kinds of films. It makes no sense for us. So I say to everyone out there who has the privilege and opportunity to make the absolute best possible thing that you can make, because you believe in it, because you're convicted to make it, not because someone says it's sweet or fashionable.
Brilliant. Well, I'd like to thank you both so much for such an insightful conversation. Obviously to Mandla, who had to leave early, and to all of you who have sat here and listened to us talk. Thank you for coming, and have a rest of your amazing day.